Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto becomes the new god of war, part 5, the last part. Subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's start the story. Naruto growled at the name, and this caused the clone to look in his direction. She said, "My Itachi-chan, you were right, the boy certainly does have that animalistic charm. Those tattoos certainly help." The clone disappeared in a swirl of paper, leaving Kushina to giggle, Itachi to look sheepish, and Naruto to blush, while Jiraiya and Kisame laughed. Itachi quickly regained her composure and said, "Come on, we gotta keep going." Naruto walked ahead, Jiraiya rushing ahead to see Tsunade. Kushina walked at a slow pace, and she hooked an arm around Itachi and in a low voice, asked, "So, you talk about Naruto-kun often?" Itachi blushed and said, "Yes, I will admit, but only to Konan, as no one else knew about, well, you know." Kushina giggled and said, "He's in Kra, you know, just put that as a thought." Itachi blushed as perverted thoughts flowed into her head. Naruto approached the bar and saw Jiraiya loudly talking to Tsunade. He walked up behind the pervert and slapped him upside the head and said, "You idiot, think for a second. If Orochimaru is in the area, is it really smart for you to talk so loud? Honestly." Tsunade chuckled, the blush showing she was drunk, and said, "Who's the kid Jiraiya? There's no way he's your apprentice if he actually had the brains to mention that." Naruto gave an impassive look and said, "You could say I was put on the same mission as him." Tsunade raised an eyebrow and asked, "What kind of mission exactly?" Naruto sighed and said, "As you might not be aware, the Leaf Village held the exam finals a little while ago. During the event, Orochimaru launched an attack on the village. Sarutobi engaged him in combat but sadly lost his life. He did however render Orochimaru's arms useless. No doubt he's come looking for you in order to get them repaired." Tsunade scowled and said, He said Sarutobi-sensei was dead, but I didn't want to believe him. I know you're here for more than just that snake." Naruto chuckled and said, "But of course, we're here to find you and hopefully convince you to return to the village as it needs a cage and you are the best choice for the job." Tsunade's scowl deepened and she said, "Not a chance, I won't bet my life on something as foolish as being Hokage." She then felt a feeling of dread as Kushina picked that as the time to walk in. Kushina cracked her knuckles and said, "Excuse me, did I just hear you say that, Tsunade?" She quickly turned around and said, "I'm sorry Kushina, but I just can't." Shut up." Tsunade was silenced by both Naruto and Kushina. Kushina grabbed Tsunade and dragged her outside, Naruto following. They found themselves on the street, Konan and the others waiting for them. Kisame heard the ruckus and said, "I'm guessing the old bird pissed those two off. Not exactly a good idea, now was it?" Itachi and Konan shook their heads as they both heard of the temper Kushina had, she wasn't the hot-blooded habanero for nothing. Tsunade stood up and said, "Alright, if you wanna fight that badly, let's make a bet on it. If you two can't take me down, then I won't return to the Leaf, but if you do, I'll gladly join you." Kushina cracked her neck and Naruto withdrew two huge gauntlets from his scroll. They were both silver in color, massive rings encircled them, looking like a lion's mane, a roaring lion made up the front of the weapons. Naruto got ready, the rings sliding back and forth. Jiraiya, acting as judge, gave the signal to start and got out of the way. Naruto and Kushina rushed forward, Kushina landing an uppercut to Tsunade's chin, while Naruto hit her square in the stomach. He threw a fist forward, the lion piece going forward, attached to a chain. It grabbed Tsunade's ankle in its jaw, and with a tug, she was pulled back, and both Naruto and Kushina gave her a punch straight to the gut, causing a crater in the ground. Kisame spoke for everyone when he said, "Holy shit, remind me to never piss them off." Everyone else just nodded dumbly and they saw Naruto dismiss his weapons and picked Tsunade up. Jiraiya was still shocked at the fight, but he prayed to God when he saw Naruto slap Tsunade awake and say, "You sober yet, you old bat?" She woke up and saw she was beaten and said, "Damn it, that's the last time I made a bet drunk." Jiraiya snickered and said, "You said the same thing after the three of us played a game of strip poker." Tsunade blushed in embarrassment as she remembered that. It was the night they found out Orochimaru was not into women. Kushina hugged Naruto and said, "That felt good, I hadn't had fun like that in a while." Konan chuckled and after walking over to the two, said, "You fight well together, most people could attest that to lovers fighting together." They both blushed, causing the girls to giggle. Naruto blushed as Konan stepped a bit closer and he asked, "There is something I have to ask, why did you three leave the Akatsuki?" Konan, Itachi and Kisame looked down at the ground and Konan answered, "I joined because my closest friend sought peace and the organization was the means to that end. But, something in him has changed. I have seen him and another member, Tobi, talking to a man with a white beard who wears gold shin guards. I never got his name. They spoke of ending this era and creating something called Olympus. Naruto scowled and said, Zeus, that bastard, he wants to not only kill me, but to regain his empire. I shouldn't be surprised. Conan raised an eyebrow and asked, what do you mean? Naruto sighed and said, Zeus was a god from the old times, before the world was remade the first time. He was king of the gods, and he supposedly tried many times to kill my ancestor. If he's here now, he must be using Akatsuki to fulfill his plans, among other people. Itachi hugged Naruto from behind and said, if that's the case, then we'll help you stop him. Kisame grinned and said, count me in, I never liked the Akatsuki anyway. Conan smiled and said, count me in too. I want to be there when the god of war rises again. Kushina felt pride in her chest and Jiraiya smirked and said, well, enough talk about this for now, we have a snake to deal with. Naruto grinned and said, good, because I have a plan to end him once and for all. Everyone shared his grin, this snake would not know what hit him. 2 days later. Orochimaru and Kabuto waited in the alley where they ran into Tsunade before. A loud sound ripped through them and all they saw was a darkness covering their vision. From out of the darkness, they heard, well now, it seems we will meet again, Orochimaru. So good you've made time for us. There seems to be a lot of bad blood between us. Oh, the memories, they're overwhelming really. Let's see, first, you gave those bastards on the council the very medicine that kept my dear mother away from me for 15 years. What else? Oh yes, you tortured poor Anko-chan with that damn seal of yours. You've destroyed countless lives, and for what? 3 years of avoiding death. Pathetic. Oh, I seem to forget something. Oh yes, you murdered your own sensei. He's dead because of you. His family grieves because of you, but don't worry. I'll be sure to bring them your head on a pike. And I'll start by finishing what Sarutobi couldn't. You may have outlasted death, but your soul is mine. The darkness faded away, only for Orochimaru and Kabuto to see Naruto swinging what looked like hooks at them, their bodies pinned down by sharks or paper. They felt the hooks connect and they felt something being pulled, and to their horror, it was their souls. They tried to break free, but their chakra was being drained, Kisame holding Samehada against them. They saw, as their soul was ripped from them and was pulled into Naruto, his chakra rising. Naruto then walked forward and using his arms, punched a hole through their chests and ripped their beating hearts from their bodies, their faces a mask of horror and pain. Naruto took out the blades of exile and sliced their heads clean off. Sticking them on a pike, he raised them into the air as a memory assaulted his mind. Saladin's forces are routed, we've got them on the run. Dante, can you hear me? We've taken the city. Naruto awoke with a searing headache as memories that belonged not to Kratos or himself started to creep into his mind. He saw the man in white and armor facing hordes of demons, some on fire, and he blasted them back with what looked like a cross. He saw others of a man in red, a hood covering most of his face, and wielding a sword that made Zabuza's look like a simple knife. He saw the man travel a broken world, slaying demons of different sizes. Naruto's thoughts were broken as Shizune, Tsunade's apprentice, walked into the room and said, it's a good thing you're up, you had everyone worried. Naruto yawned and said, what happened? Shizune giggled and said, you put their heads on a pike as you said you would and then blacked out. You've been out for a couple days, but now that you're awake, we can start heading back to the village. Tsunade-sama is still a little mad at how you and Kushina-sen beat her so easily, she's blaming it on the booze. Naruto shook his head and said, doesn't matter now, we made a bet and now she has to stick with it. Shizune giggled and said, you got that right. And I made sure to never let her live it down. Naruto saw Itachi and Conan walk in, both minus the Akatsuki cloak. Itachi still wore what she had under, consisting of a black shirt over a fishnet shirt, black Anbu pants, and her old ninja strapped to her back. Conan on the other hand certainly drew some attention, as she wore a black shirt that had no back or shoulders, showing her smooth skin, allowing a bit of her breasts to be seen from a side view, a zipper going down the front, the top of the shirt acting as a collar. It left her stomach bare, with what looked like piercings around her belly button. She had black hip hugger pants and classic Kunoichi heels. Her amber eyes still had a bit of shadow. Naruto looked like a deer in headlights, and Conan giggled and said, "My, do you like what you see?" Naruto had a slight nosebleed on his face, and it got worse when Kyuubi said, "My, she looks ravishing, I bet those hips are great for bearing kits." The girls giggled as they saw him faint, and Tsunade and Kushina, hearing the ruckus, asked, "What's going on over here?" Tsunade had a tick mark on her head upon seeing his nosebleed, but Kushina said, "My, Kyuubi-chan must have said something to him, and Conan, it must have been about you." Conan felt her face turn red, as she didn't expect the Kyuubi to not only be female, but from the sound of it, a bit of a pervert. She then thought, what did she say about me that made him faint? Time skip 2 days later, Konoha Gate. The group made their way back to the Leaf, using a couple of Jiraiya's toads to up the pace. They soon arrived at the gate, Itachi feeling a sense of dread, while Kisame was keeping an eye out. Tsunade and Shizune felt a few bad memories starting to surface, while Kushina felt a chill go down her spine. Even Jiraiya was feeling some dread, and their feelings were proven right as they saw a mob of civilians, with Sasuke and Sakuya at the forefront. Naruto and Tsunade jumped down, and Tsunade asked, "What the hell are you doing? Do you know who you have your weapons raised at?" Sasuke smirked and said, "Yeah, I know, these people want to be rid of the demon that lives in our village." He then raised a sword at Naruto, a Jan, straight double-edged sword, the Kusanagi being an example, known as the gentleman's sword, his smirk never leaving. Naruto drew out Masamune, the sword coated in black chakra, before what looked like a squad of Anbu arrived, parting the two groups, and the captain said, "Leave now, or forfeit your lives, you dare attack a hero of this village, and our newest cage." The civilians started to back away, but a certain pink-haired woman screamed, "He killed my daughter, he needs to pay." Before anyone could move, she charged at Naruto, who sidestepped her, knocked the kunai out of her hand, and plunged a single blade of exile into her gut, before slowly dragging it across her stomach. The blade pulled out of her back, her body split in two, and the crowd watched in horror. As the blood flowed from the body and into the blade, as it faintly started to glow red. Naruto pointed the blade at the crowd and asked, "Anyone else wanna try? I'd be happy to send you to hell." The civilians wasted no time and ran away as fast as their feet could carry them. Sasuke, seeing this, disappeared in a flash of lightning, and Naruto thought, Zeus is teaching him many of his tricks, no matter, tricks can't stop a blade from slicing his throat. Itachi shivered and thought, God, that was so hot to watch. Naruto looked back and saw Kushina grinning, even Jiraiya, before he felt a weight on his back, more than one in fact. The next thing he heard was the squealing of Anko, Saya and Haku as they glumped on him. Zabuza started to laugh as he slowly walked over to greet them. The Anbu merely sweat dropped and the captain asked, "Naruto-sama, was that wise?" She was still a grieving mother. Kushina scoffed and said, "Wise? Hell yes, she came at him with the intent to kill him, same as that little bitch of a daughter she had. I mean seriously, she poked the lower half of the body with her foot, that womb just created another slut that makes Kunoichi look bad. I remember she tried to kill me because I was with Minato. The bitch got what she deserved." The Anbu captain nodded and said, "Then this shall be listed as self-defense. Have a good day." They disappeared via Shunshin, leaving the group in the street. The girls still held Naruto down, Kyuubi still teasing relentlessly, and Naruto didn't know what was worse, his red face or his tool. He really didn't want to think too hard about it, not after he felt Saya grab his ass. Time skip 2 days later. The coronation of Tsunade becoming Hokage should have gone smoother. The announcement was greeted with outrage as civilians tried to get the hat placed on Sasuke's head, though it was stopped when Naruto brought a boulder to the stage, a very large boulder. And they saw Tsunade obliterate it with a finger flick and ask, "That's gonna be the skull of the next idiot that tries anything, got it?" Tsume, attending the ceremony, left as she complained, in her own words, "It smells like total shit." But trouble didn't end there, as the civilians tried to have Naruto executed for the murder of Sakuya Haruno, but with testimony from both Tsunade herself and the Anbu that were present, the charges were dropped, though a sword to their necks didn't hurt. Tsunade herself was now sitting in her office, with shadow clones tending to the paperwork. She was about to take a sip of sake when a clone passed her a scroll. She saw the stamp on it and quickly ripped it open. As she finished, her eyes widened and she yelled, "Get me Naruto Namikaze now." Namikaze estate. Naruto and Kushina were in the yard, Naruto using the blade of Artemis, while Kushina used her personal katana. Saya, Itachi and Haku were watching in amazement as Naruto was swinging the large blade like it was a stick. Kin and Teiya soon walked into the yard and Teiya saw Naruto swing his sword and cut a tree straight in half. She said, "Holy shit, I'm glad I'm on his side." She felt a hand slap her on her ass and Kin said, "No cursing Teiya-chan, you know better than that." Teiya was beet red, her hair looked pale compared to the blush she had. She then said, "Not in front of them, geez." They heard the sounds of crashing metal stop as they saw everyone look at them. Before another word could be said, a female Anbu Sunshine entered the yard and said, "Naruto-sama, you are needed in Lady Tsunade's office, she has an important mission for you." Naruto turned serious and vanished, the girls sighing as they really didn't want to see him leave. Tsunade's office. Naruto stood in her office, his face looking like a deer in the headlights, and he said, "You mind running this by me again?" Tsunade's eyes twitched and said, "It's exactly what I said, I'm placing you on a rank of utmost importance. The Amazon village is facing the threat of being attacked by Iowa. Being on the border of Earth country isn't helping matters. You're the best we have." Naruto grew a tick mark and said, "Last I checked, that place is literally no man's land, hell even that pervert wouldn't go near it." They'd be more inclined to cut my junk off than even let me walk in the front door, let alone help them. Or have you forgotten that little detail? Tsunade smirked and said, actually, I haven't, but the queen herself asked for you, must have something to do with that new title of yours. Naruto sighed, he wondered when something like this would happen, hell he expected religious fanatics first. Somewhere in the Akatsuki base. Hayden, the most religious of the group, sneezed, making his partner Kakuzu lose count of his money. You son of a bitch. That took me 3 hours to count that far. I'll kill you. Hayden raised his scythe and said, bring it you greedy asshole, I'd love to send you to Lord Jashin. Pain, who was searching for Conan, saw the duo starting to fight and thought, what the fuck happened to this organization? Tsunade's office. Naruto shook his head and said, fine, but if I get my junk cut off, Anko will certainly have a word with you. Tsunade's eyes twitched and she said, just get moving brat, we don't have any time for you to grip. I let them know what's going on. Naruto scoffed but headed to the west gate, going in the direction of the Amazon village. He thought, I do not have a good feeling about any of this. Soon after he left, Anko walked into the office with a scowl on her face. She said, where's Naruto-kun? Did you give him a mission? Tsunade sighed and said, I did, he was asked by name to aid the Amazon village with their problem with Iwa. Anko paled and said, are you serious? Those chicks will kill him before he even has a chance to talk. Not even Kurenai is as anti-male as them. Tsunade got a bad feeling and quickly broke out a few bottles of sake. Amazon forest. Naruto leaped through the trees, hoping this queen at least mentioned he was coming. He heard the sound of something cutting through the air and jumped, looking back only to see an arrow, but his eyes widened as he saw the tip was on fire. He had only one thought, oh shit. He heard arrows soaring once again, but this time, he drew out the Spartan arms, using the shield to block. The arrows harmlessly bounced against the shield as he thought, please tell me the queen thought ahead to say I was coming. In the distance, he heard something like, come out from behind your shield male scum. I don't care if the queen asks for you, I will kill you before you take one step closer. Naruto scowled and looked for the shooter and saw her standing on a branch. She held what looked like a bow made of vine rather than wood and she wore a brown vest with red border and cuffs with what looked like a small brown shirt underneath and she wore a skirt similar to a Spartan. Her hair was a pale gray and to his amazement, she had blood-red eyes. Amazonas archer, she had an arrow at the ready before they heard, stop this foolishness right now sister. The queen ordered us to lead him to the village, not kill him. Naruto saw the girl lower her bow and look at the new arrival. The new girl, if she could even be called that, wore a white skirt and hood, a headdress keeping it in place. She had various gold bracelets on her arms and legs and had feathers spread out on various parts of her clothes. What really caught his attention, besides her figure, was the sword she held in her hand, a double-sided straight sword, similar to a Jan. Amazonas paladin, the first girl looked to the other and she then said, but sister, why would the queen allow this male scum? We Amazons have always kept ourselves away from those dirty pigs. Naruto came out from behind the shield and said, hey, I take offense to that, just because you guys must have had guy problems in the past, doesn't give you the right to start shooting. The second girl jumped down and with a slight bow, said, please forgive Artemis, she was taught by those of the older generation. Our queen, though a bit young herself, is hoping to break away from our older, more outdated ways. But that is not why you were called here. Naruto nodded and said, I heard, it seems Iwa is going to attack this village. Well, I'm here to help. The first girl, Artemis, scoffed and said, we don't want your help male scum. The second woman glared at Artemis and said, you're right, we don't want it, we need it. Artemis grew beet red and said, shut up Aphrodite. If it were up to me, he wouldn't even be here. Aphrodite scowled and said, enough, we are taking him back, like it or not. Artemis kept her mouth shut, though she tried to melt him with a glare, and Naruto heard Kyuubi say, my kid, I heard tales of the Amazons, but it seems this queen is trying to break tradition to gain your help. I have to say though, that arrow girl sure is good looking, and that other girl, I wonder what wild times come from her. Naruto blushed at Kyuubi's teasing, as she filled his head with pervy thoughts of the two women in front of them. Stop. If they think I'm having dirty thoughts, they will cut my junk off. Kyuubi went quiet after that. They blindfolded Naruto's eyes to ensure he wouldn't tell anyone of the village's location, and when they took it off, he was at the gate, as the village was the simplest definition of the word. The homes were huts, wood bound together, and straw tops. He noticed the women all had dark looks on their faces, and he thought, shit, another village that wants me dead because of something I can't help, just great. He heard Kyuubi purring in his mind, and luckily he kept calm, and he saw they were in front of the biggest hut in the village. No doubt this is where the queen is. Artemis glared at Naruto for a second and said, be grateful, and you better show respect to our queen. I don't care if you are our guest. Naruto nodded and went inside and saw a light coming down on a throne and saw the queen he heard so much about. She sat on a white throne, a couple of her guards standing by. She held a relaxed pose, her head leaning on one arm, while her other arm held a giant slab of a blade by the hilt. Her feet were covered in tape up to her ankles and a little over her shins, which were further covered in shin guards. She wore a tattered skirt over wrappings that covered her lower body, and she wore a decorated brassiere, the spikes added a nice touch. She wore a necklace, the only other thing she had on was an eye patch of a skull over her right eye, her left having red paint around it. Amazonas Queen. Naruto was forced on one knee by Artemis, an arrow at his back making it hard to refuse. The queen then said, "My name is Hera, as you may have noticed, yes, me and my sisters were named after the various goddesses we most take after. Though thankfully, I'm not some drunken fool." Naruto snickered, "Artemis, let him go, now." Artemis looked at Hera and said, "But my queen, she was cut off," as Hera said, "Enough, I asked for him to come here, we need his help, like it or not." Artemis took her bow away from his back, allowing him to get up. After brushing himself off, Hera said, "We have a problem, as you know, Iwa ninja plan to attack us, luckily, it's not the whole village, just some of their rogue ninja. A couple of our scouts managed to hear their plan and make it back. It seems the fools will try to attack us and make us their slaves. Sadly, they are mostly and 5 to 10 of them at best, though they brought 80 mercenaries with them. This is why we need you, will you help us?" Naruto's eyes turned yellow and his red tattoos glowed red and he only asked, "When can we expect them?" Hera smirked and said, "They will attack tomorrow morning. I'm confident that you will succeed. I will send a bit of our forces to aid you. Until then, get some sleep, you will need it." Naruto bowed and silently left the room. Later that night, Naruto sat in front of the fire that was ablaze in the middle of the village as he wasn't allowed near the huts. He thought, here I thought I was gonna die going near this place, and yet, only 2 out of all the girls I met here don't wanna kill me. Iubi heard him and said, "I know love, but from the look of her, I'd say Hera knows who you are and that Aphrodite girl is the only one sensible enough to not judge you outright. And speak of the devil." Naruto heard someone sit next to him and saw Aphrodite, her hood gone, allowing her blonde hair to flow out. She then said, "Don't get the wrong idea, I just thought you looked a bit lonely out here." Naruto smiled a bit and said, "No worries here, though, I'm glad you didn't judge me outright, like the rest of the women here. This makes 2 villages." Aphrodite raised an eyebrow and said, "2? What do you mean?" Naruto looked out the corner of his eye and said, "It's personal, I'd rather not say." As he turned back to the fire, he heard a light breathing and, as he looked to his right, he saw Aphrodite fast asleep, leaning on his shoulder. Neither of them knew that Artemis was watching from her hut, a glare in her eyes that was trying to fry a hole in his head. Hera was also watching and she thought, seems Aphrodite is like her namesake in one way, she's attracted to the god of war. The next morning, Naruto woke up with his head snapping upright, the weight of Aphrodite missing from his side. He saw her come out of her hut, ready for the battle to come, her sword in hand. Naruto stood up and he readied death's scythe, unconsciously saying a small prayer under his breath. This caught Aphrodite's attention as she whispered, "Are you nervous?" Naruto shook his head and said, "No, I've dealt with worse." Aphrodite nodded and asked, "What do you think will happen after this?" Naruto shook his head and with a slight grin, said, "Never make post-battle plans, bring bad luck." Aphrodite blushed, though her hood hid it from view. Hera stood in front of her sisters and said, "Sisters, we are a small village, barely the size of a town, but while we face an opponent that will try to destroy our way of life, remember, we are strong, though we are few, and we have the honor to have with us, the god of war." The women turned and looked at Naruto, shock written over their faces, even Artemis. Naruto stepped forward and said, "I know some of you may be nervous, but know this, there is no force we cannot stop if we work together. I know you may not trust me, but I have a few surprises for our guests." Naruto laid out a map his clones made of the area during the night and, as he explained his plans, Aphrodite and even Artemis and Hera were impressed. The small field before the village. The rogue Iwa ninja led their mercenaries forward, perverse dreams of taming the jungle women dancing in their heads, though a few smelled something odd about the grass around them. One of the ninja heard flaming arrows coming down and a few jumped out of the way, but noticed that they barely hit them. Before they had a chance to laugh, a couple were caught in a fire's updraft and the shock of it caused the mercenaries to panic and they tried to run the way they came. That was before they saw multiple Narutos, each holding a certain weapon. They barely had time to stop before they crashed into each other, giving the clones and a few of the Amazons a chance to rush them. These next scenes will be done by a clone, though I will use the weapon name instead of Naruto. With Nemesis Whip. The clone held the nemesis whip, the lightning crackling, as he flipped the weapon in his hands, as one of the mercs gained some courage, and said, "We can take a single." His words were cut off, as a dart hit him in the neck, courtesy of Amazonas Blowpiper, causing the rest to panic once again. Before they felt themselves getting fried by electricity, while a few that got away had the backs of their legs sliced at, the shock causing a large cramp to freeze up their bodies. Nemesis slowly walked to each of the downed enemies, before slicing their throats. The blood collectively flowed from the bodies to the blade, the lightning slowly turning red. But Hermes' boots. The mercs continued trying to run, yet always finding the clone in their path, but then they noticed his shin guards, they had wings. He placed one foot on the ground, and before they knew it, he vanished in a yellow blur, before they saw him stop, and saw a few of their friends were clutching their necks, and a red liquid rolling down. They looked at the clone, only to see a bloody kunai in hand. A few of them lost it and tried to attack him, only for the clone to vanish and the mercenaries to fall in a bloody heap. The blood flowed, being sucked into the boots until it vanished beneath his feet, the boots glowing red. But claws of Hades. The clone jumped, avoiding the various weapons the mercenaries had, the chains adding to his fluid movements, until he felt his back press up against one of the other Amazons, a silver-haired woman wielding a chain and hook, her figure as impressive as the others. Though she wore a tattered blue shirt and skirt, Amazonas chain master. The clone turned its head slightly and said, "This is getting nowhere fast." The woman replied, "I agree, perhaps." The clone smirked and said, "I aim high, you aim low." The woman smirked and said, "You read my mind." The two leaped into the fray, the claws ripping the souls out of the mercs, turning the tides, as the blood was ripped out of the soulless bodies by the woman's own chain, the blood flowing into the hooks as it went, as the soul ripping left nasty gashes on the victim's torso. But Nemean Cestus. Another clone was fighting back to back with an Amazon, this one looking like she preferred hand to hand, as she went with tape and spiked knuckles on her hands, her outfit consisting of a mix between dominatrix and pro boxer, as her stomach was wrapped in leather straps, which was held together by her brassiere, her frame more muscular than most of her sisters. Her hair was tied in a giant ponytail, with a slight burn at the top. Amazonas fighter, one merc tried to rush her, only to receive a skull-crushing right hook. The clone saw this and thought, shit, it's a younger Tsunade, hell she would have taught this chick how to do that. His attention refocused as he saw a merc try to attack her from behind, only to feel his organs get crushed by a hit to the gut from both the clone and Amazon. She looked over and said, "You fight well, for a guy." The clone smirked and said, "You're not too bad yourself." They saw a few more coming and rushed toward them. But blades of exile. The clone held his twin swords at the ready, standing back to back with an Amazon. She had her clothes like the others, short, revealing, and had spikes in various places. Her wild red hair and slightly muscular frame was nothing compared to the blade she carried. Amazonas swordswoman, she looked out of the corner of her eye and said, "There seems to be quite a lot of them." The clone scoffed and said, "Why say that? Think there's too many?" The woman shook her head and said, "No, though it may get tricky if one more shows up." The clone chuckled and said, "Then that will have to be the one I take care of. Two. They jumped apart, each slicing away at two mercs at a time. But Naruto. Seeing his clones take out the mercs with no problem, he turned to a few of the ninja that were left as they fell for the trap, leaving only the two Jonin. Aphrodite charged at one, while Naruto, wielding a death scythe, attacked the other, as the ninja said, "Why are you helping them? If you help us, we'll give you a cut, some of the gold, a few of the women." Naruto scowled and with a single swipe, sliced the Jonin's arm off and gave him a solid kick to the stomach, forcing the man into a tree. He slowly walked over as he said, "I won't take any riches, but I will take your life." He swung the scythe underhanded, piercing the man's stomach before tossing the body away like garbage. He turned to see how Aphrodite was doing, and what he saw made his eyes see red. The Jonin had her pinned to the tree, her sword a couple feet away, and the man had a lustful glint in his eyes. Before he could reach a hand up, he felt a sharp pain in his stomach, and when he looked down, he saw a large blade sticking out of it, and before he knew it, he was lifted up, and the last thing he heard was, "Burn in the inferno." Before his abdomen was ripped in half. Aphrodite only saw Naruto pick her up before she blacked out. Later that day. Aphrodite awoke with a start, the village shaman tending to her wounds. She looked around and asked, "What happened?" The shaman put down her tools and said, "That man, he brought you to the village while his clones destroyed the mercenaries, it was a bloodbath. In all my years, I never dreamed the god of war would return. My grandmother and even her grandmother before her merely told it as a tale, but I never imagined." She shook her head, remembering the stories, and she said, "Times are changing, child, you should do your best to stay with him." They heard a bit of arguing outside, and Aphrodite slowly made her way to the door and saw Artemis and a few of the Amazons that stayed in the village. She heard Hera say, I understand how you feel, but he saved our village, it's the least we can do. Artemis grew angry and said, but why? Why must Aphrodite leave and be given to that male trash? Aphrodite blushed and thought, I am to leave the village and go with Naruto-sama. What is the queen doing? She slowly walked out of the hut, drawing the attention of the others, and Artemis said, be happy sister, now you get to be with this male trash all you want. Hera glared with her visible eye and said, enough Artemis, it is still her choice. Aphrodite raised an eyebrow and asked, what are you all talking about? Naruto sighed and said, it seems your queen wishes to create an alliance between my clan and this village, and the way she's doing it is, well, Artemis scoffed and said, you're being married off to this male scum. That's what's happening. Aphrodite's mind stopped and she remembered the shaman's words. She glared at Artemis and said, is that so? Well, I would be happy to, as not many can say they are married to the god of war. Can you? Naruto only had a single thought, I knew this wasn't going to end well. Tsunade's office. Tsunade finished her work and was about to drink some sake when an eagle pecked at her window. She opened the window and saw the eagle stick its leg out, showing it had a message. She opened the scroll, read the message, and thought, why am I not surprised? That kid's gonna give me gray hairs one of these days. The end. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.